The blood rushed to my fingertips, making them tingle as I held the small folded reservation slip in my hand. The reservation slip I didn't even need, because the restaurant itself was mine. Yet, I stood outside the arched glass doors of Maison de Claire, my own flagship fine dining palace, while my mother stood planted firmly in front of me like a god blocking the gates of a kingdom. Through the door's golden frame, I could hear the clinking of glasses and my father's booming laugh echoing across the dining room. He sounded so alive, so proud, so surrounded by people he approved of. The chandeliers sparkled above them, casting warm light across tables covered in silk linens, candles, and plates of food I had personally curated with Chef Laurent. And yet, here I was, standing on the cold stone steps outside, treated like some uninvited beggar. "You can't seriously think you're coming in," my mother said sharply, her voice dropping into that cutting whisper she reserved for scolding me in public. Her eyes narrowed, and she lifted her chin as though I was some stranger, not her son. "This is Maison de Claire, Daniel." She let the name drip from her lips like it was foreign. "Do you even know what the tasting menu costs here? It's more than you probably make in a month." My heart clenched, but my lips pressed into a tight line. If only she knew, if only she understood, that I had designed that menu myself alongside Laurent, that every dish on that menu was born from my vision. But she didn't know. She didn't want to know. "He's my father too," I said, forcing my voice to remain calm, even steady. I slipped my hand into my jacket pocket and felt the envelope tucked inside. Inside was the deed to a villa in Malibu, a property so rare and exclusive that celebrities fought to book it for even a week. That was my father's birthday gift, waiting in my pocket. But right now, it weighed me down like a stone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Daniel Morgan. I'm 35 years old, and I am a hospitality entrepreneur. This moment, right here, is the story of how I took back my place at a table I didn't just deserve. I owned it. Mom wasn't finished. She never was. She smoothed her pearl necklace against her collarbone, preparing for another round of attack. "Your father and I were very clear," she continued, her lips curling. "We only want successful people here tonight. People who won't embarrass the family. People who actually make us proud." Her words stung like open wounds. The irony cut so deep it was almost funny. Just yesterday, I had signed off on a $200 million expansion of the Savoy Group, my fine dining empire. Tomorrow, I would be traveling to Paris to close a deal on our 31st property. And tonight, I was apparently not successful enough to walk into my own restaurant. I bit back a bitter laugh. The absurdity was suffocating. 10 years ago, I had left the family's law firm. Back then, I was their disappointment, their shame, their son who had chosen kitchens and menus over law books and courtrooms. I could still hear my father's words that night, "No son of mine is going to be a glorified waiter." So I had let them believe that. Let them think I was struggling, that I was some assistant manager running shifts in a chain restaurant somewhere. Meanwhile, quietly, secretly, I built the Savoy Group into one of the most prestigious names in hospitality across the country. Today, my name was whispered at international conferences. Chefs competed to work under me. Critics wrote odes to my restaurants. And yet, in my mother's eyes, I was still the shameful dropout. "Daniel." Her sharp voice snapped me back to the present. Her glare burned holes into me. "What are you doing here? We discussed this already." Correction, they had discussed it. That morning, I'd received her text, "Don't come to Dad's birthday. It's at Maison de Claire. You can't afford it. Don't embarrass us." I raised the envelope slightly, my grip tightening. "I brought a gift," I said quietly. Her eyes darted to it with disdain. "A gift card to some fast food chain," she mocked. Then she sneered, "Or did you save up enough from tips to buy him a wallet from the mall?" A sharp laugh escaped my sister Michelle, who had suddenly appeared at my mother's side. She was dressed in a ruby-red gown that hugged her figure too tightly, and in her hand was a glossy designer clutch. My stomach twisted as I recognized it, a knockoff version of a real luxury bag that hadn't even been released yet. I knew, because the designer himself had shown me the authentic collection during a private viewing last month. "Mom's right," Michelle said, her smile widening. "Whatever gift you brought, Daniel, I'm sure it's adorable. But my fiancé and I got Dad something real. Something appropriate." She tossed her hair dramatically, flashing a diamond ring so bright she clearly wanted everyone on the street to notice. I stayed silent, though I knew far more than she realized. Her law firm, where she had just made partner, was currently weeks away from begging my real estate division for a lease extension in one of my towers. Without me, her firm's future was already crumbling. "Michelle's doing so well," Mom went on, her pride swelling as she eyed her daughter. "She's got the new house, the car, a fiancé with a future. She's everything we wanted. And you," her gaze returned to me, dripping with judgment. "Well, at least you're trying, I suppose." I clenched my jaw. Images flashed in my mind. My penthouse overlooking the Pacific Ocean, my garage filled with rare vintage cars, the private jet that had brought me here just hours ago. But all I said was, "Yes, Mom. At least I'm trying." Michelle leaned closer, her eyes sparkling with cruelty. "Speaking of trying, Daniel, that suit. Couldn't you have made an effort? This is Maison de Claire, not some diner." I smoothed my hand over the fine Italian wool of my suit, custom-tailored in Milan by a designer who had turned down Michelle's begging emails last season. "It's what I could manage," I replied evenly. "Well, you're not coming in." She crossed her arms with finality. "The VIP floor is reserved. It's for family and distinguished guests only." The words made my chest tighten. The VIP floor. My VIP floor. I had personally redesigned it, selecting every painting, every chandelier, every velvet curtain. My fingerprints were all over it. "And who exactly are these distinguished guests?" I asked. "You wouldn't know them," Mum said, waving her hand as though brushing off dust. "The Harrisons, they own that successful bank. The Parkers, old money. And Mr. Fields from the Law Society. All very important people." I nearly laughed in her face. The Harrisons had been on their knees begging my investment group for a loan just last week. The Parkers had sent 3 separate requests for memberships at my exclusive Caribbean resort, each one denied. And Mr. Fields? He had personally requested a private meeting with me about hosting his society's annual gala at this very restaurant. "Right," I said. "Very important indeed." Michelle smiled, clearly believing I understood my place. "Exactly. So you see why you can't be here. What would people think if they knew Dad's failure of a son was bussing tables for them?" "Michelle," Mom hissed, though her eyes sparkled with silent approval. "Be civil. Daniel made his choices. If he had stayed in the family law firm, things would be different." The same law firm that now struggled to pay rent in one of my buildings. Just then, Michelle's fiancé, Greg, stepped out. He tugged at his tie nervously. "What's taking so long?" "Everyone's waiting." His eyes landed on me. His voice faltered. "Daniel, didn't expect you here." "Clearly," I replied dryly. "Greg just made vice president at his bank," Mom announced proudly. "Junior vice president," I corrected without hesitation. I knew the exact details of his title. His bank handled some of my smaller accounts, and my financial team kept me informed. "Well, it's more impressive than whatever you're doing," Michelle snapped. "What is it now?" "Assistant manager at some fast casual place." I thought about the acquisition papers sitting on my desk upstairs, papers that would soon make me Greg's boss's boss. "Something like that," I said softly. "This is ridiculous," Mom snapped, her patience evaporating. "Daniel, just leave. You're making a scene." "You mean he can't afford it?" Michelle added with a laugh. I looked past them into the golden light of Maison de Claire, my restaurant, my chandeliers, my marble floors, my staff. For a moment, I almost gave up. almost let them continue believing their lies. But then I heard my mentor's voice echoing from years ago, success means nothing if you can't stand up tall in the face of doubt. My jaw set. My shoulders straightened. For the first time tonight, I felt calm. Actually, I said quietly, I think I'll stay. At that moment, the doors swung open. Mark, my head of security, stepped forward in his crisp black suit. His eyes scanned the scene, landing on me with respect. Is everything all right here, so? His voice carried across the steps. Your usual table is ready, and Chef Laurent is waiting for your tasting approval. The silence was deafening. Michelle's lips parted, her smug expression vanishing. Mom's hand froze against the brass handle. Greg shifted awkwardly. I smiled faintly. Perfect timing, Mark. My family was just explaining how I couldn't afford to dine here. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. My mother's lips parted, but no words came out. Michelle's eyes flickered between me and Mark, her expression hardening as confusion painted her face. Greg shifted uncomfortably, clearly sensing the power dynamic had just flipped, but not quite understanding how. So, Mark repeated, his posture straight, his tone dripping with deference. Chef Laurent has already plated your requested amuse-bouche. The guests are awaiting your signal to begin the service. I let the words linger in the air. My mother's face paled, and Michelle's smirk evaporated. My usual table. Michelle finally blurted, her laugh strained. What does he mean by that? Mark's brow arched slightly, his professionalism never faltering. Exactly what I said, Ms. Morgan. Mr. Morgan dines here often. He owns the rights to this table, as he does the restaurant. Now, if you'll excuse us, the staff is waiting. The air around us thickened. My mother's face contorted, as though she'd been slapped. You own this place, she sputtered, her voice trembling between disbelief and rage. I met her gaze evenly. Every chandelier, every table, every fork. Michelle scoffed, though the unease in her eyes betrayed her. That's ridiculous. You're lying. You can't even. Michelle, Greg cut her off, his voice shaky. He's not lying. Her head snapped toward him. What are you talking about? Greg swallowed hard, his eyes darting toward me with reluctant acknowledgement. Daniel Morgan. He's the CEO of the Savoy Group. The silence was deafening. My mother froze, her hand still clutching her pearls. Michelle blinked rapidly, her confidence cracking. What group? Mom finally asked, her voice cracking. The hospitality conglomerate, Greg whispered, as though saying it too loudly would make the truth sting even more. The one that owns 30 restaurants, resorts, clubs, across the US and Europe. His name has been in the business journals for years. Michelle's lips parted in horror. That's him. Greg nodded grimly. The same Daniel Morgan the New York Times called the silent king of hospitality. Their faces were priceless. I kept my voice calm, almost casual. So now you see why I find amusing that I can't afford to be here. My mother's eyes narrowed, struggling to process. You mean to tell me, all these years, when we thought you were wasting your life in kitchens and restaurants? I was building an empire, I finished for her. Her breath hitched. Mark stepped closer. Sir, shall I escort you to the private lounge? I nodded slightly, then glanced at my family. They'll be joining me. It's Dad's birthday, after all. Michelle opened her mouth to protest, but Greg quickly grabbed her arm, pulling her back. He knew better than to make a scene now. Inside, the restaurant sparkled. Staff bowed their heads respectfully as I walked past. Every employee knew who I was, and tonight, my family would see it too. The main dining floor buzzed with laughter and the clinking of glasses, but as soon as we entered the VIP lounge, the atmosphere shifted. Happy birthday! Voices rang out, led by my father's booming laugh. He stood at the center of the room, glass in hand, surrounded by bankers, lawyers, and politicians. His suit was sharp, his smile wide, until he saw me. His laughter cut short, and the room seemed to pause. "Daniel." His voice was laced with confusion. "What are you doing here?" Before I could answer, Michelle rushed forward. "Dad, you won't believe this. Daniel's been lying. He's not." Greg interrupted sharply, almost as if saving himself. "Sir, he's not lying. He owns this restaurant. In fact, he owns all of them." The color drained from my father's face. "What?" The Harrisons and Parkers exchanged surprised looks. Mr. Fields, the Law Society head, leaned forward with interest. "Daniel Morgan, as in the Savoy Group? The very same who just bought the Marbella resort chain." I inclined my head politely. "The same." The room erupted in whispers. Suddenly, the eyes that once overlooked me were now filled with admiration, curiosity, and respect. My father's glass lowered slowly. "You're telling me, this place?" "Mine," I said simply. Maison de Claire was my first flagship. Every detail, every decision, I signed off on it. Mr. Field smiled. "Remarkable. I've been trying to secure a partnership with your team for months." The Harrisons nodded eagerly. "Our bank would love to host your next gala. Daniel, perhaps we can arrange a meeting." My father's jaw tightened as he realized the tables had turned. All these important people he'd invited tonight were suddenly gravitating toward me, not him. Michelle's voice broke the moment. "But you were always so quiet. You never told us." I met her eyes. "You never asked. You were too busy laughing at me, dismissing me, calling me a failure." Her face reddened. Mom finally found her voice. "Daniel, why didn't you ever say anything? Would it have mattered?" I asked softly. "When I dropped out of law school, you both called me a disgrace. You told me I was throwing my life away. You said you didn't want me at family gatherings until I got serious. So I stayed away. And while you pretended I didn't exist, I built something you couldn't even imagine." My father's face hardened, pride and anger warring inside him. Why keep it a secret? Why not tell us? I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Because I didn't need your approval. I didn't need your applause. I needed to prove to myself that I could do it, and I did." The room was silent, the weight of my words heavy in the air. Finally, my father spoke. "So what now? You come here to humiliate us? To show us up in front of everyone?" I shook my head slowly. "No, Dad. I came here to give you a gift." I pulled the envelope from my jacket and placed it in his hand. "A villa in Malibu. It's yours. I thought you might like a place to retire by the ocean." Gasps filled the room. My father's hands trembled as he opened the envelope, scanning the documents. His eyes flickered, unable to believe what he was holding. "You bought this." "I built this," I corrected gently. "And it's for you. Despite everything, you're still my father." For once, his voice faltered. "Daniel, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I replied. "Just, maybe next time, don't shut the door on your own son." The silence stretched until finally, applause broke out. Mr. Fields clapped first, followed by the Harrisons, the Parkers, and then the rest of the room. The respect I had earned, not inherited, filled the air. Michelle and Mom stood frozen, their faces pale, unable to process the shift in power. I turned to the staff. "Begin the service." Within moments, plates of artful dishes began to arrive. The finest wines were poured. The room, once cold with judgment, warmed with admiration. As I sat at my usual table, my father across from me, still stunned, I realized something important. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about reclaiming the dignity they had stripped from me years ago. I didn't need their validation. I never had. But tonight, In the very restaurant they tried to bar me from, they had no choice but to see me for who I truly was, Daniel Morgan, the son they disowned, the man who built an empire, the owner of the table they once said I didn't deserve. And for the first time in years, I finally felt at peace.